first of all, let me just say on behalf of JFSG, we appreciate all of you taking the time. I know you're busy to get on this Zoom call. And, as we've already talked about, Steve's going to record it and we'll send you a copy of it. We want to keep this to an hour, but we've got some questions. We sent you the questions. This is not going to be very formal at all. It's going to be very informal. And, so we can go off of the questions. We can go wherever you want to go in terms of this Zoom call. So anyway, I'd like to start off with introductions. We sent you the bios, everyone's bio. I just wanted all of you know each other. All of you have been to the end of the year meeting. But I did want each of you to take a few minutes and just talk about, maybe where you are right now and a little bit about your background. And so, Josh, can I start with you?
Absolutely. Josh Key, Vice President of Advancement at Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia, Arkansas, in the southwest corner. I've been here now a little over 16 years. Started out in annual giving and kind of have risen to the position now. And where we're at now, we are in October, we will start our final year of our first ever comprehensive campaign where we try to raise, our goal is $22.275 million over 5 years, and making great progress there. So happy to be here, and thanks, Jerry, for the opportunity.
Josh, can I ask, Josh, what percentage of your goal, towards your goal, is playing gifts? Where are you at there?
We just received a large planned gift commitment, and so we're right at about 30% of our goal is planned gifts, and we are now almost at 23 million with today's report.
That's great.
Fantastic.
So one of the positive things about what Josh has done is the fact that he's only had maybe one other development officer throughout the course of this campaign. He's had two, but she wasn't there. We got Rob on the call coming in here too, so I want to get Rob in here. Rob.
Good morning.
Good morning. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness. I'm not as used to this platform.
I know. So we just started, and we're just sort of going around and letting everybody introduce himself. But I was talking about Josh. Josh only had one development officer, and they're at about 22, almost $23 million. And so they've done a really good job. And it reinforces what I've said before. It doesn't take an army of people to do this job. It takes a few dedicated individuals. So Josh, congratulations on you and your staff. So John Crawford, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. I'm John Crawford. I'm Vice President for University Advancement, and I'm the CEO of the Valdosta State University Foundation. I'm in my 13th year at VSU. I'm in my 24th year of professional fundraising, and have worked with the J.F. Smith Group on a couple of capital campaigns at two different institutions. Most recently here at VSU last July, we wrapped up a 5-year $43 million campaign, or $43 million was our initial goal. And we wrapped up at just over $62 million. And we are now sort of in the follow-up phase to that campaign and having a lot of success.
Great. Thank you, John. Dan?
Dan Gregg. I'm the Vice President for Advancement for Indiana Tech. I've been working with Jerry for quite a while, about 10 years, I think. Met him during my tenure with Liberty Christian School in Argyle, Texas. We had a $14 million campaign there. Worked with him on a building campaign at Lindenwood University. I was there for 2.5 years before I came here. I'll be on my second year in July. It will be my 2-year anniversary. We've embarked on our campaign about 2 years ago, building a century of excellence. 2 years ago in July. We're at, as of right now, we're at about 4.9 million. This week we've had about $500,000 in planned gifts. I'm anxious to tell you how we're proceeding now that we're back at the office. And so really, we're just really getting rolling, and we had a lot of momentum going right up to March. And then we were just pretty much doing what you all probably have been doing a lot of too during that 6-week period, is doing engagement calls. But we really feel like they've paved the way for some success coming up. So anyway, that's kind of my quick background.
Okay. Wendy?
Hi, Wendy Kobler, Ithaca College, worked with Jerry for about 10 years, been in fundraising 10 years, almost like day one, and leading a team that needs complete rebuild. So been working with Jerry and Mark. We were very active with them, actually launched into a training and development program specifically with the gift officers, and getting folks out on the road, teaching them what to do and how it is to, follow the process. And March 13th, flew home from Boston, haven't left since. And we are still remote, being in New York State. We are, just slowly phasing reopen as we should be. We've had over 30,000 people die in the state. And so as we move through this, so we have already publicly announced the open of the school, which will be October 5th. We're doing an intentional delayed open. So I'm trying to take care of, how is it that we are going to be moving forward with this new normal, getting in front of people and balancing all of that. When I've been in my role 9 months, when I came on board, I spent the first few months assessing the team, assessing where we are, the direction that we needed to head, and was just starting to get out on the road in January, February, when of course everything came to a halt. So we are doing a lot of engagement, a lot of Zoom calls. In fact, I spend my day, majority of the time like this. I'm spending way too much time on the administrative side of my job, a lot of training. I'm going to be hopefully turning that ship personally by doing a lot more engagement. But being able to move forward and figuring it out is advice that I'm looking for from all of you. So I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Great. Rob?
Rob, you got to turn your mic on.
Hey guys, sorry about that. You'd think after doing Zoom calls for 12 weeks would have all that figured out. But anyhow, Rob Walbaum with Auburn University. I've been with Auburn 22 years in various roles. I've served as interim vice president. I ran our last campaign. About the last 5 years, I've been in the athletic department, heading up fundraising for athletics. I've worked with Jerry, 20 years off and on in various areas, but we are in the middle of a athletics facilities campaign right now, and that we're working with JF Smith Group on. And Jerry told us, what'd you say, Jerry? We could raise about $57 million.
Yeah, but we established the goal at 61.7.
Yeah. So you know how boards are. The consultant says one thing, they're going to push it more, but we're currently at about $100 million. So
wow.
My God.
Yep. So it's gone really well. I think a big difference that's happened in the last couple of years is we've been asking for very specific things. If someone's passion is basketball, we've been asking for the basketball facilities that we're working on. If it's baseball, softball, etc. Historically, we pretty much have asked folks for unrestricted funds, and I think that's played a big part in it. You connected them closer to the thing that they're passionate about. So our fiscal year ends the end of this month, and I'm pretty thankful for that. We've had a really good year. We had a really good fall. We've talked to a lot of those folks that made pledges, and they're going to stick with them for now. I did get a phone call from a guy one day, said that he lost $50 million that day, but that was back March 22nd or 3rd when the market crashed. But I think he's regained that 50 million, and I think he's up another 40 or 50. So, there are people still out there that have funds, but our fiscal year is about to end, which I'm thankful for. It's been a good year, and starting to make plans for the next fiscal year and see how that turns out.
Let me add something, Rob, there. I've had a contract with the athletic department at Auburn since 2001. And over the years, we've raised in private support, not taking priority money, private support anywhere from $5 to $10 million a year. And all of it's been mostly 80% of it's been unrestricted money. And so now we go into this campaign, and it's the first time that we've ever gone out and asked for restricted money or money for specific projects. And I think it's made a huge difference. So what did you do last year, Rob? $19 million in athletics or somewhere in that number?
Yep. So it ended up a little bit higher. Last year was 23 million, 23.1 is
Right.
where it ended up. And then this year so far, we're at about 26.8.
Right.
Now we have had
the rich get richer, by the way.
we have had a large portion of this year, I'd say almost half, is a significant plan gift from a donor that I think will likely pay that out during his lifetime. But anyhow, we went ahead and that was a big difference this year.
Right.
Hey, Rob, Jerry, can I ask Rob a question?
Yeah, please.
Hey, Rob, Valdosta State has a very successful athletic program. I mean, we're nationally ranked in everything that we play, every sport we play. We win national championships, but we're Division II. I'm really curious with the success that Auburn has had recently in basketball,
Right.
And then as you know, in the years when the football program was really successful, can you correlate an increase in fundraising at a major Division I SEC Power 5 school like Auburn? Does your fundraising success correlate with the on-field winning percentage or not?
So John, that's a good question. Real interesting too. So when I was in the Central Development Office, I used to look at the Giving USA.
Yeah.
Looked a lot at those trends. And if you look at those, if you look at that one chart they have that shows the S&P 500, and then they overlay fundraising behind that, there's about a year lag between fundraising up and down with S&P 500. So a couple of years ago, we did that same overlay with our fundraising in athletics, and we also put a chart overlay on there of the athletic success. And this wasn't scientific. We didn't get any brains in the room. We were just looking at it. But our assessment was the winning helps for sure. But we saw the bigger dips and increases related to the economy. So now Bruce Pearl, he's kind of a force of his own.
Yeah.
Right.
So Jerry, what was our goal in basketball? Was to raise $3 million for them to renovate their locker room. Well, we raised $5 million. So we eventually got to, okay, what else, Coach?
Well, what's really interesting, what has really been interesting here is there is an assumption among our donor base and our coaches that we won the national championship in football in 2018, and actually donations to football that year at VSU declined in the trailing 12 months. But I think it was more economic than it was because the football team won the national championship. But actually in 2018, 2012, 2007, those are years we won the national championship in football. The next year, all of our athletic giving, particularly for football, dipped slightly. And that's just been very fascinating to me here. And I just didn't know, we're Division II, so you got to take that into account. But I just didn't know at a school like Auburn, really how much winning really played into giving.
I'll tell you, John, the most difficult years that we've seen looking back in our history and overlaying the team's success is those mediocre years. Those years, 6 and 7 or whatever it might be, or those years were the toughest. But you look back, over 20 years when we had those really horrible seasons, well, a lot of times you had some change related to that. And so you could sell hope, and so we saw donations go up. I wasn't in the department at that time, but that's kind of my assessment. And when you have those successes, I don't necessarily know that it goes up, but it helps to keep it at its current level. That's what we found anyhow.
So let's go back to Josh, and here's the question for the group, though. We'll start with Josh. What are you doing now? What are you doing now, Josh, with your fundraising since March, since all this COVID-19 started?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much like everybody else. We paused all annual giving as well as campaign pledge reminders, those kind of things, on March the 6th, and took a heavy stewardship focus. We charged all of our development staff with reaching out personally to our portfolios in a variety of different ways, by phone, Zoom, personal notes, emails, those kind of things. And then also in with that, we've taken that stewardship a little bit further and implemented, while other people are doing giving days, those kind of things, like on the Giving Tuesday, we did Gratitude Tuesday, and we did a huge push out of student messaging of thanks to our donors, had our board members involved in calling 5 or 6 donors that day to personally thank them for their support and sticking with us during this difficult time. And we kind of set also a series of questions that we felt like had to be answered before we start development work back. And so now we feel like those questions have been answered as far as, what our budget looks like, what we're doing for the fall semester, and educating our alumni and friends of the impacts that we're feeling. We did a direct video from our president to our alumni and friends of the impacts that we're feeling. And so we have developed a rollout plan that starts July 1 of getting us back to what I would call development as a new normal. And so that's kind of been our approach. We've rescheduled our giving day for June the 30th. And then that's gonna kind of be the trigger to roll us back out. Also, we're going to all of our campaign commitments, our current campaign pledges, and asking them to extend their commitment by 1 year and direct this year's payment to what we're calling a Mule Rider Strong Fund. That is an operational greatest need fund for the university to help us supplement the budget cuts that we've made.
So that's an interesting concept there. That's interesting. I'd be interested to see how that plays out. And but Dan, tell us what you're doing.
Well, we decided to do kind of an experiment because we hadn't done any, we just had some momentum with our campaign, following up on the feasibility study interviews and also on the online study interviewees or constituents. And then we were doing nothing other than calling people. So we Mary and I and Dave both put together a list of 10 prospects that we sent out, just a handwritten note with our leave behind piece and saying, we'd like to connect with you, set up a time on the phone. So we mailed that out to them and then followed it up with the email asking for a couple dates that they might be available the following week. So those have really been great conversations that when we've had replies back from them, and if we haven't, we're calling them. But they didn't all play out kind of like we thought. What we thought we would do is we get them on the phone and basically do the feasibility study results, get permission to send them a proposal, and very awkward. We had a lot of discussion on whether or not in that proposal, because we'd send them the full-blown proposal, do we put an ask amount in there, or do we just send them the campaign overview and wait to the ask when we get them on the phone for the solicitation call? Mine have gone a little bit escalated where I haven't even, they said, yeah, I'd like to take a look at a proposal, but what are you going to ask me to do? So I've got a lot of commitments on the preliminary call and followed up with a proposal just so they could see it anyway. Dave and Mary have followed more of what we started with. They're sending out the proposals. And so we've had some success with that. But one of the things that we've done in between all this, we initially decided not to do like an emergency fund appeal. And we came back, and when the CARES money came in, we discovered, well, it wasn't allocated for the international students. So we'd given away a lot of those funds to our domestic students, but the international students had just as great as need. So we did an appeal, and we've had great success with that. Not huge money, but over 100 gifts came in the last week through either return mail, and the printer forgot to put the business reply envelope in. I got a lot of calls on that, including one from Jerry that said, what return piece? There isn't one in here. So anyway, we even without that, and so we've done a lot of follow-up calls, thanking people for that, and talking about a lot of other things. Just for instance, one older lady that her husband passed away 2 months ago, we didn't know about it. So she wasn't in the system. She wouldn't have got the mailer if we would have had him as deceased. She called in and he said he would have wanted to contribute to this fund. So I got online and we did a credit card, $100. Had the nicest talk with her, and you know how you do, you build a relationship. And she goes, you know, I'm redoing my will, and I think we're going to do something I'd like to put Indiana Tech in our will. And I said, well, God forbid if something happened to you tomorrow, what would you value that to be? And she said, oh, 50,000. So said, where would you want to direct that? And she said, well, we'd want to do a scholarship. And, you know, so anyway, that's the kind of follow-ups that have been really helpful. I talked to a guy yesterday. I mean, these planned gifts have been great. And right now, what we're focused on, we're gonna each take 10 more, and then 10 more. But we have 40 people that are in our Planned Giving Society. We have no idea what the money is, and we don't know the direction. And next week we're going to start making those phone calls. We visited with Jerry and Philip Coward on kind of a bullet point script to, you know, how you bring that up and how you get it. And we're going to get a lot of I mean, I think it's going to be great. I have a feeling just with the history of Indiana Tech, and we've had a lot of loyal engineering givers. I mean, people that have given small amounts over a long period of time. And, you know, it's a bit of a shell shock for them to see a 5 or 6 figure gift, even though they have the capacity. I have a feeling that our planned gifts are going to be much higher than Josh's. I really believe that, but that's going to be okay because they come through and we have a lot of people, and Mark can attest, and Steve can. We have a lot of people in their 80s and 90s that you know. So that's kind of what we're working on, and we've taken some of the energy and momentum from that emergency fund. We've only raised about 60,000 from that, but great opportunity to get back in touch and thank people and talk about things. So
what I told Dan, I said, it's not the dollar amount you raise, it's the number of gifts you receive.
Yeah,
that's what you want to look at, because some of these people maybe have never given before or never given at this level, and it allows you an opportunity to start building that relationship and cultivate that relationship.
Well, it really feels good after not doing any solicitations over 6 weeks. And those that have done the feasibility study, we only have about 30 left to follow up out of 128 that did the interview, but we had close to 700 online surveys. And, you know, we thought we can't not get in touch with them, or they're going to forget even about the feasibility study if we don't start following up with these folks. So it feels good to be back in the saddle again and start having these positive conversations and getting some commitments.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Wendy,
Yep.
What are you doing?
We're going to operate on mute, so not to have Rob's. So we're doing a lot of things. We're heavily engaging. We are also continuing with our annual fund solicitations. We are about 250,000 away from raising 1.2 million, purely unrestricted, which will put us over the annual fund goal. We are engaging the deans to help with their annual fund outreach. We have a planned giving direct mail that will go out next week regarding just informative. We've been very careful about that due to the amount of deaths and seeing the constant death toll on the national news. We wanted to be careful about anything that would be that, but I feel comfortable about that right now. In addition to that, we have had a lot of I took advantage of this opportunity to clean house. So all of my negative folks, or my folks that didn't have a can-do spirit, or ones that I could see that weren't going to be get with the program and the new format, I took the opportunity to furlough them. Of course, we did that across the campus, so legally we felt we were protected. But I worked with the president on that. She was extremely supportive, as well as HR and everything that we needed to do. So I unloaded 13 people, and
Wow.
so which cut me down tremendously. But so this has been almost a month now since this has happened, and I said to the team, several members of my team who are very good relationship with, I said, have we missed a beat with those individuals gone? And every one of them are like, no, not at all. They needed to go. They needed, I think it was obvious to most people. Now I have some of the political across campus that I have to address, and then I have a meeting with the Alumni Association Board of Directors on the 11th, where I'm going to be asked about staffing. And so I have my prepared notes, as I have for everything, and so I will address that. But that's kind of been. Now I'm also working on a 3 to 5 year growth plan, because I plan on, so we're sitting right now with 30 staff in our team. The highest it's ever been was 57, and I will work to build us back up to about 45. And the majority of those, as Mark Martin will be pleased to know, will be gift officers. So I have made it very clear that we need to have about 10 to 12 gift officers specifically to really do what we need to do, and also in anticipation of moving into a feasibility study and then into a comprehensive campaign. We have delayed the start of the kickoff for the feasibility study until March 1st. The reason why is because in this area, the majority of our alumni being in the Northeast, and in California, even in Chicago, which would be the Midwest, people are not going to allow us into their homes, or even a place of business or a place to meet. And Ithaca is just too remote for us to have that opportunity. We have majority of alumni, of course, in our major cities, being in actually the city, New York City, and also in Boston and Chicago and some other places. So we've got to take a look at that. So I've run this through the president, I've run this through the board, I've gotten very good feedback. We're looking at a March 1st kickoff for the feasibility study. Our board meeting would take place in October. So that gives us that nice, and this is all 2021, so that gives us that nice window. I will be placing an RFP out for the feasibility study probably in about a month or so. It's already written and been approved, I just haven't pushed it out yet. Again, just trying to close the end of the year strong. We have not had a strong planned giving program, and our programs overall just have not been strong. And so I framed it as working and building on the basics. So that's why we had Jerry and team come in to do training, and then of course that's all been put on hold, but we were making good progress, and as soon as we can really restart, we certainly want to take a look at that. Some of my colleagues and people that I used to work with, specifically at Ohio State and at Purdue, they are looking at holding on any type of travel until at least January. And so I am in discussions with my team about and I don't mean someone local going to get a cup of coffee where a restaurant's opened outside. I mean legitimate travel where we're getting on planes and we're getting in front of people in their homes, in their place of business, or in public places. And so holding on that. Have the president on a program. She's very involved, very much wants to be involved in fundraising. We are sending her 2 or 3 tasks to do every week with either prospects that are assigned to gift officers or that are assigned to her. We're giving a briefing on that, a little update of where they are, and then having her do outreach. So she's reaching to about 2 or 3 people, either via email or phone calls. And these are a little bit more of our higher level donors. We were on the road with her doing a conversations with the president where we had successfully done, these are small groups of individuals of about 10 to 20 people. We hosted one in San Diego last night via virtual engagement, specifically Zoom. We had 14 people sign up, which is, again, along the lines of what we're trying to do, that 10 to 20 people. We only had 7 actually show up. We've had also this issue out in LA as well. So I don't know if it's a California thing or if it's people just aren't ready to be engaged in that manner in small group over Zoom. We were moving forward with the Philadelphia area where we have a large population, as well as starting to do some smaller of these in the city. I've held on those. I've told the president we're going to relaunch those in the fall because I want to be able to give folks their summer, give them the opportunity as they're figuring out their own lives and moving forward. She has been very receptive to everything we're putting forward, and also very receptive. She knows that I needed to go down in order to build back up, and also to implement basics before I can implement innovation. So really in a building mode where I am right now.
Wendy, can I ask a quick question? What was your last campaign and how many years ago, and what was raised? Do you know?
Certainly. The last successful campaign in the first, they did not begin fundraising at Ithaca College until 1997. It was under the leadership of Dr. Peggy Williams, where she was a long-term serving president there. So they brought in Peggy. She realized that they were maybe doing some alumni relations outreach, but really not anything. So fundraising began there. Peggy, they raised and successfully completed a capital campaign project that ended in 2008. It was probably about $50–60 million. And they did another campaign where they never got out of the quiet phase, and there was a lot of racial tension on the campus. So they ended up, thankfully, never going public on that campaign. It would have been probably about $75–80 million within that campaign. And however, the board knows about that campaign. The senior leadership knows about that campaign. So I messaged them that we've had a failed campaign and we cannot go down that path again. So, which is why I'm being very cautious and careful, because I certainly don't want that to be under my leadership. And so, and the board chair for the advancement committee, a gentleman by the name of Thad Fortin, ran a business, sold a business worth millions. He's a VC. But he also went to a private all-men's college or boys' college in Philly, and he is very active on his private school board, and he is extremely knowledgeable about philanthropy and engagement. And so I couldn't be more blessed to have him in serving as the chair of the advancement committee of the board, because he is helping me navigate the board, the senior leadership team, and making sure that we are stepping carefully in the right direction. But
Right.
Just by how he's challenging me to think. So right now I'm working on a 1 sheet, might be a 2 sheet. Basically, what is our high level executive summary strategy for the next 3 to 5 years, including personnel. And we are seeing our donors of high net worth that have made large pledges. For example, Home 2 is the CEO and chairman of that, Lee Bird, owes a $400,000 payment on $1 million commitment. And he was going to do that with stock this summer. He is not able to do that due to the stock not being as valued. So he's asked for us to stretch that out over a longer period of time. So we'll probably stretch that out over 2 years as he sees the business recovering, big retail establishment. So taking a look at that, and we did a student emergency fund. I will tell you, I had pushback from my president regarding doing a student emergency relief fund. I had some pushback from her. She's first generation, didn't think this was the right time, etc. I got a lot of people excited about it. We went ahead and moved forward with it. Every time she speaks at a public setting, she references the Student Emergency Relief Fund 2 or 3 times. And so I knew it was the right thing to keep pushing forward on. And we've raised over $120,000 for that fund with very little outreach. We had 2 matching gifts at $25,000 a piece, which made us quickly go up. Once we hit over 100,000, and we hadn't awarded but like $5,000-6,000 in the money, I held us from doing a broad-based appeal around it. However, we are going to be doing in our last end of the year ICView magazine, alumni magazine that's going out, we are putting a soft ask into it, an envelope into it, that will be completely based around the Student Emergency Fund. And I'm pleased to say we've awarded now about 70% of the fund. So we're going to start taking a look at, does there continue to be need? And we're finding need among international students as well as DACA students. And so there's a lot of need with those, and we have a lot of those students.
Right.
So John, let's go with you and tell us what you've been doing.
Well, we started when we shut down campus operations. We were, it was in March, and so with our athletic programs, with our baseball and softball season ticket holders, the development team set about calling every one of them to see if they would like a refund on their season tickets or if they'd like to convert those to gifts. And we had about a 99% success rate getting those balances transferred to gifts. And then the College of the Arts came in right behind. We have Valdosta State's home to something called Peach State Summer Theater, which is the official summer musical theater of the state of Georgia. And it's kind of a cool thing. And it runs for 2 months. And those are pretty significant season ticket and sponsorship packages. And so I had the entire development staff take that entire patronage list and call for Peach State Summer Theater and the Valdosta Symphony Orchestra, which is run through Valdosta State University. And probably 80% of those folks allowed us to convert their sponsorships and tickets to gifts. So we showed some activity there. And then sort of like what Josh was saying on contacting people who were nearing their pledge payout for the capital campaign, we've set about contacting those folks and have been pretty successful in having those folks either extend their entire pledge. We've had a couple of people say, yeah, I just finished a 5-year pledge. We approached them about extending their pledge payment for a year, and they said, you know what, I'll just sign up for another 5-year pledge. And we've been able to do that with several people. All of our major projects have sort of been derailed. We were moving into a list of projects. One was a performing arts center where we needed to raise $5 million, and the state in the current legislative session was poised to give us $13 million. It's going to be an $18 million building. It doesn't look like the state's going to be able to come up with their part of it. We're going through a 14% budget reduction from the state of Georgia right now. So that sort of got derailed. So once we got through those series of phone calls, what I've had the development staff doing is handwriting notes to their top prospects, calling the ones that they have very good relationships with, and just trying to reinforce relationships. Our foundation board took a pretty hard line with me from the beginning that they did not want us actively soliciting anybody that they thought that would be perceived as tone deaf. And I think they were correct for about a month and a half. So we made no solicitations other than those phone calls. Hey, do you want a refund on your tickets, or do you want to convert that to a gift? And then we decided to initiate something called, hospitals have grateful patient campaigns. We decided to initiate a grateful student campaign. So the very first thing we did was have our student body president just write a letter, and we emailed it to all of our donors that simply said, on behalf of all the students, thank you for your generosity. And then now we followed that up with students who have benefited from our student relief fund. We call it the VSU Cares Fund, which we've actually had the VSU Cares Fund for about 12 years. I hate that the feds called theirs the CARES Act because that's led to some confusion. But we've had some students. Our board took $50,000 in unrestricted dollars and devoted it to the CARES Fund, and then we've raised another $10,000 or so for it. And as we make those grants to the students, in the letter when we mail the check to them, we say, please write a thank you note and send it back to this address. Most of them have done that, and the really good thank you notes we've converted into a grateful student campaign. And we've done one email. We're about to do one direct mail solicitation. And once the ThankView software comes online, some of these students have agreed, and we're going to do some video testimonials saying what the VSU Cares Fund grant that they've received, what it allowed them to do. You know, it allowed me to finish my bachelor's degree. Now I'm going to medical school. It allowed me to pay rent for a couple of months. Now I'm able to come back to VSU in the fall and graduate, and some of those kinds of things. And that's what we're focused on, you know, right now. And it's been busy. We've not raised a lot of money, but we have gotten a fair number of gifts in. And, you know, I think the whole situation is still a little bit, one of the questions, Jerry, you wanted us to talk about is what have we learned? And, you know, I don't know. I don't know what we've learned from this yet. I think it's still too up close and personal to see where we're headed. But, you know, the market is back. I mean, the NASDAQ is almost, it's a 200 points away from an all-time high. So I feel like long-term, our major gift prospects are going to be just fine. The questions that we have in our shop is much like probably all of you. When is the state of Georgia going to allow us to travel again? And I'm not comfortable at all, and it could be my J.F. Smith Group training. Well, I'm just not comfortable at all presenting a major gift proposal to somebody over Zoom or on the telephone. I just don't think that's going to play well for our particular donors. But that's sort of where we are.
You know, John, the market is up. It's up 5% over it was over the same time last year.
Yeah, I mean the market is. I mean, our endowment's in really good shape.
Right.
You know,
right.
I do think long term, your major gift donors, people of wealth, I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. Rob, what have you been doing? Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Rob.
A lot of the same of what everyone else just mentioned. Since March 18th, we've had no travel, remote work, and the university came out and said we are not going to make solicitations. You know, John, similar to what you said, you know, want to be careful about not being tone deaf. We have moved some gifts forward where people were ready to proceed. $1.5 million gift I've been working on, I mean, for 2 years, quite frankly, you know, timing is now he's ready to proceed. So there's been several gifts we're working on, probably about $1.25 million, but not actively soliciting unless that donor is completely ready. So we've done a lot of donor calls. Early on, we were having the refunds of baseball and softball, where those seasons were canceled, and we were offering folks a refund or the opportunity to make a donation. We had student athletes put together some videos that we sent out to donors, basically asking them just to continue supporting the program, to make that a donation. I think we had about 1/3 request a donation and 2/3 in those programs. I'm sorry, 1/3 request a refund and 2/3 make a donation. So we spent a lot of time on the phone. Anyone that was in one of our societies, a development officer called directly. Lots of phone calls. And then about the last 6-7 weeks, we've really engaged our coaches in doing Zoom calls. And we have focused those calls on folks that have given to their sport. And also, you know, they have sport clubs and also season ticket holders. So those have gone very well. And we have those scheduled through mid-July, and we'll come up with some others at some point in time. Early on with pledge reminders, we decided that in athletics, the university as a whole discontinued pledge reminders. Well, I made the case for athletics that some of those pledge reminders were tied to folks wanting to improve their priority or get certain seats, and if they missed those gifts, that would have a negative effect on them. So what we decided to do is anytime someone had a pledge reminder, I sent them a personal email. I mean, this you know, takes a lot of time once a month, but basically, like Mark, for example, say you had an outstanding gift to Auburn, I'd send an email basically say this would be the time of the year that I'd be sending your pledge reminder. We want to be sensitive to the current times that we're in. Would you like to delay your pledge, or would you like me to go ahead and send you your pledge reminder? So most folks have said, send me my pledge. I'm good to go. We've had a few that said, I'd like to delay it. And so we asked them 3 months, 6 months, and made those arrangements. We've had no cancellations at this point. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think, Rob, I think that's a mistake. And you and I have talked about this of canceling pledge reminders.
Yeah.
I think you should have sent the pledge reminders out. Let people then, you're trying to make decisions for them. Let them make their own decision. They'll tell you, listen, I can't do this right now. I'll write back a note or whatever. I need to delay it for a couple of months. But I think delaying that was not a very good decision.
Well, that's just where I felt like the decision was what was right for athletics was a little bit different than what people felt was right for the university. So we deviated a little bit. But one thing we have done is those that have been making their pledge payments, we've made a little bit bigger deal about that. A $200,000 pledge payment comes in for football. I've gotten the football coach to make a phone call or send a text that says, "Hey, we really appreciate your continued support." Same thing with the AD and basketball and some others, is engaging those leaders a little bit more. Someone was talking a little bit ago. I think it was I don't remember who it was. I'm sorry, but was talking about involving the president. Although not through us, our president has been calling our top donors over the last 10 weeks. And then in the last couple weeks, we've put together Zoom calls for him. There was one this week. I think it was on Tuesday. And it was 6 athletic donors that all know each other, that are all real good friends. And we put those 6 donors on a Zoom call with the president. Last week, he did one with engineering. They were engineering folks that all knew each other. Now, we didn't just put random people together that didn't know each other. That might be a little bit weird, but these were basically fireside chats with the president. So those have gone well. And I just got one more point. I want to wrap up, but we are looking right now at returning to travel. Our student athletes start coming back tomorrow on the 5th. And we start with football, then basketball, women's basketball, and soccer, volleyball. So they're returning to campus, and we've put out what guidelines we're going to go by, what extreme measures we're going to go by to help keep them safe. And we've estimated that expense is going to be about $800,000. And so we have worked through the university, the vice president, and also central administration, that we are going to put out a solicitation to ask folks to consider supporting that, and then also start some one-on-one conversations by Zoom, and potentially start traveling again in July. July 1, I think someone mentioned, that's what we're looking at also. And John, I'm like you, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with a Zoom solicitation. There are some folks that will be fine with, but I am also concerned about our people, keeping them safe. So I've worked with our athletics doctor, and he had a lot of suggestions for keeping our people safe with resume to travel. And I'd be happy to send those to Jerry. And if he wants to share those with you, he could do that. But just looking at how we can start doing some of these things. John, probably like you and many of the others of y'all, and Josh and Dan in your communities, but Auburn's a pretty small community. I'd say, although the market's coming back, our local economies are still hurting. So like you mentioned earlier, we're going to be very careful not being tone deaf, because although like the guy I mentioned that lost $50 million, he's back and he's to the positive. We have a lot of those folks, but locally there's still a lot of people hurting. So we're going to try and be careful with those solicitations.
And I've said this before, I think to all of you, one of the biggest mistakes made, in 2008 was not going back and soliciting sooner. They wanted to put everybody on hold, and they didn't want to go see people and go and ask them for money. And I think there's a happy medium here where, we've got to get out in front of somebody, and we've got to ask for money. That's our job. My question is, you talk about you can't travel, for so many months. What are you doing with your staff? I mean, there's so many calls you can make and so many notes you can write. What do you do with them? What happens to them? You lay them off? You furlough them? What's going on?
Well, with us, it's been a lot of basically in their metrics, we've converted personal visits to phone calls and Zoom calls. And I've really communicated with my staff that, hey, I think now is a really good time to make sure that you're carefully documenting all those conversations. So a lot of stewardship, Jerry, but given the nature of the personalities of good fundraisers, they're going stir crazy, you know, and although we have a travel ban, I know there's starting to be some undercover visits, you know, a little bit of golf, a little bit of visiting on someone's boat dock, a little bit of fishing, a lunch meeting, you know, so thankfully, with our fiscal year ending, all of my development officers had made their goal for the year. And I told them, I said, you know, hey, let's look at how do we reload for next year? And you got to keep close communication with those folks that you have in your pipeline, so we don't lose too much ground. But they're starting to feel it, Jerry.
Yeah.
We did something at VSU, and this is a university-wide initiative. And Jerry, I don't think you're going to like this very much because they're not raising money, but it's been really helpful at VSU, and we actually have our coaches doing this too. But you know, the coin of the realm for a regional comprehensive university like VSU, and Josh, I think probably for you as well at Southern Arkansas, this may be something you guys want to think about. Our student success division, which has enrollment management, they came up with something called a concierge coach model. We had 245 VSU staff members that were tasked with and I actually helped develop it because we approached it like a fundraising portfolio, but we assigned 245 different employees a portfolio of enrolled students. And when we transferred to online, their job was to sit down and I had 10, but I had other responsibilities. Some people had 35. Your job was to sit down and call your 35 students once a week and say, how you doing going online? Do you have any issues with your professor? Do you have any issues with your financial aid? Are you registered for summer school? If you're coming to summer school, do you need any help with that? Are you registered to come back next fall? And that's continuing now with our students who are enrolled for summer school. And so a lot of our development officers are doing development type work, but they're doing it through the enrollment office with our current student body. And the theory with that is every student we can save and get them to graduation or get them to retain and come back to school in the fall, that's money to the university's bottom line in the budget. And so the development officers at VSU, frankly, have been doing a lot of that.
John, how many development officers do you have?
Counting me, we've got 6.
6?
Yeah. That counts.
So, you know, here's what I'm hearing. You know, we're talking about, we don't like to make these, you know, we prefer to get in front of people. That's what we've done forever, you know, face to face. But, you know, if they're telling you can't travel for 6 months or until January, whenever that may be, we may have to go back to maybe doing solicitations with a Zoom call or a phone call. I mean, you got to do whatever it takes to succeed at this stage. And, you know, not that it's not the best, that's for sure. And you know, what Dan's doing, you know, there's a couple of different ways of their approaching this. Dan's got one approach that Dan and I are working on, and the other 2 development officers are doing a different approach. And then we're going to look at each one of those and see which one's been most successful. But, you know, you might even put a plan together like that. If you'd like to have a copy of Dan's plan, I'm sure he'd send it to you and let you see it. But I think we've got to be putting a plan together where we're going to be soliciting people. If we can't travel, we got to start looking at a different way. We can't just sit there and wait. And you're right, Rob. I mean, you know, they're stir crazy. They want to get out there. They want to do something. I mean, they're competitive people, so they want to raise money. And if they have to, maybe it's over the phone, whatever it is, the Zoom call, whatever it may be. And, you know, are you going to have as much success as you would face to face? Maybe not, but you're going to have some success.
Well, and Jerry, let me say quickly, as one of the folks that have spoken up that we're not comfortable doing it that way. I'm okay as this thing continues to unfold and we get back to work. I'm okay, and I think we will be successful reaching out to people on the phone or over Zoom. Frankly, I think most of ours would be on the phone.
Yeah, that's what ours are.
Yeah, and I'm okay with the people that we have good established relationships with. I'm not sure how effective we would be on prospecting for new folks, but I agree with
No,
you.
I agree.
I think eventually we are going to have to get back. And in my case, you know, you guys all met Jerry, Jeanette. I mean, you know, Jerry and I talk once a week, and we're working on a gift for football right now because he wants to make sure football's got everything it needs to get the season started with all the budget cuts. And I think we're going to close that gift, you know, on the phone and get that done. I'm just more concerned about what we were doing is, you know, trying to get to all these people with only 6 development officers that are in our universe that we've not talked to yet. A first contact is, you know, is okay on the phone, but to develop a relationship, you know, we talk all the time, Jerry, about building the relationship. Hard to build a personal relationship with somebody on Zoom or on the phone.
No, I agree. So, Josh, how do you feel about this, making solicitations on a Zoom call or a telephone call?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with everybody. You know, I think it's different. I think it's not comfortable, but I agree with you, Jerry. I think with those that are ready, I think we've got to press forward. You know, and we have had a little bit, found a little bit more success of those that are hard to reach and set appointments. It's been easier for us to get a 30-minute Zoom call on their schedule. And so, you know, we've had a little bit of success there, but I think, you know, we're going to have to draw the line and press forward on those that, you know, are ready to solicit those in our portfolios and move forward.
Seems to me, what's the president saying to you? I mean, they cutting your budget? Are they because you're not raising any money? Or if they're telling you can't travel. So what, I mean, you got to have a plan. And that's what I've talked to Dan about. Dan's got a plan, right, wrong, or indifferent. At least he's got a plan. And that's what I think all of you should do. And all of you have sort of some kind of a quasi plan. And you need to put that plan in place because you're going to have to justify your existence at some point in time to your president, to your board, to everyone that you have to answer to. So I think you got to be creative. You got to think outside the box. You know, that's all I can say.
You know, and as we were kind of thinking through and looking at our constituents, and with all the publicity with this COVID-19, they don't really. There's almost a relief that we're not trying to get in front of them. They're happy to hear from us. They're happy to discuss their experience at Indiana Tech. They want to know what we're doing currently and are the students coming back, the progress of the campaign. It's never as good as in person. And that was one of the things that I struggled with because I hate the phone. I mean, I hate the phone and I love one-on-one interviews, but I'm getting better and better on the phone. And, you know, you can't read body language and everything else, but you can do it. I mean, and I've grown through this experience. And I know my staff has, yeah, and Jerry and I've talked about we're going to leave some money on the table here, but we got to justify our existence. We luckily right before this all happened, we were doing some budget cuts and we cut bait on 2 key positions that needed to move on. So we've got a little grace in our budget. But what I'm really curious before everybody has to go, what are you guys doing for homecoming? Ours is scheduled for the first weekend in October, and we're really debating on whether or not, you know, we're going to get anybody coming back. I know Wendy and I talked. You guys have moved yours to spring, right?
We're moving ours till the end of June. We are also we were trying to do graduation in August. I mean, there's just no way we can have these large gatherings. And so we are moving. It will be announced Monday that we are going to do in-person celebrations, a series of celebrations with the class of 2020. And we're also moving our homecoming. It's called Alumni Weekend. So we're going to make it a true alumni reunion weekend, the last weekend of June, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
This June or next June?
June, year.
Oh,
1 year. Yeah. So nothing this month.
Yeah.
And so we're going to move it there. This will all be a rollout on Monday. So we've been putting together that plan, and then we will we will work to separate out alumni reunion weekend and traditional homecoming for the next year. So the end of 2021, 2022, somewhere in there.
So, it's going to be interesting to see all these people that have gathered in New York and all these cities around the country, all the protesters, some of them have masks on, some of them don't. Is that going to be an upsurge in the coronavirus?
It's got
We'll
to.
find out. That'll be a test to determine whether that works or not.
I'll tell you what they're seeing.
Jerry, go ahead. What, John?
I was at my physician's office earlier this morning, and most of the conversation revolved around what's VSU going to do. And he said, well, he said, since everybody kind of gathered, the high school kids in Lowndes County, Georgia, gathered back up, and they didn't have in-person graduations, but there were plenty of graduation parties and things that were happening because, people believe they're bulletproof. And he said just this week, they have seen a significant surge in the number of high school age students who have it here in Lowndes County, Georgia. And that led to a conversation of because we're, state of Georgia, we were first in the nation to open, by God. And we're coming back in the fall just as if everything's just fine. The plan right now is for us to play sports, have fans in the stands, do all that kind of stuff. And the question is, I asked him, I said, well, what do you think? I mean, what's going to happen when we bring 8,000 kids back to VSU, put them 4 to a dorm room? That's our plan now because that's what we've been told by the University System of Georgia we're going to do. And he said, well, each institution's got to decide what's your number. When you get to X number of cases, what's your plan after you get to X number of cases? And my only point in all that is that the virus hadn't gone anywhere. And this would take another hour phone call. I will tell you that one of the things that we have done, we have a pretty significant number of African American alumni and graduates and students. And we had a direct mail piece that was actually in a social media campaign that was actually supposed to start today. And given the social unrest in the country, we've decided to delay that for at least 2 weeks, just because we're hypersensitive right now to being seen as tone deaf. And I talked to several of our prominent African American alumni. So what do you think about it if we started this social media campaign and this direct mail piece? And they all, it was unanimous. They said, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to look bad if you do it.
So are you going to have homecoming, John, this fall?
It's scheduled. We don't know what it's going to look like. All of our budgets for large scale events have pretty much been zeroed out. So I think we're going to have a homecoming football game. I don't know what kind of programming we're going to have any money to do around the football game.
How about you, Josh? Are you homecoming changed at all for you?
Yeah, we're kind of the same in line with John at Valdosta. We have a homecoming date, but I think it'll be weeks from now before we make a call on what we will actually do around that date other than a football game.
Yeah, we have a save the date card ready to go, and everybody's going, are we going to even get anybody to come? And I'm saying, we have a great 50-year class, and I hate to not have it, but they're not going to be, I don't think, even in October, ready to get on a plane and gather.
My 50-year class will not come. They've already told me they're not coming.
So, Rob, what about, you got a situation where, football hopefully is going to play in front of fans and not an empty stadium?
Yeah. So, in terms of homecoming, it's not what it is at Auburn as it is for many of y'all. But that's what we're working toward right now. I mentioned, we bring student athletes back starting this week. We have probably about 10 different scenarios that we're playing out. We don't know if it's going to be full capacity, 50%, 20%. We just don't know at this point. Our athletics director made a comment, I think it was Tuesday. He just said, we've got a little time on these decisions, although we've got to get to it. He said, but the longer we wait, the more information we have. So we have about 5 or 6 different scenarios that we're really working on. But our plans to have football, we just don't know what it's going to look like yet.
Right. Okay, so we're past our hour. Wendy, you want to make a? Oh, okay.
You're muted.
You just waving.
Sorry, like everybody. No, I've got to go into my next meeting.
Right. I was just going to say, Mark, can you just sort of,
enjoyed this?
Mark, you want to make a comment and close us out here?
Well, I'll just say I'm proud of everybody on this call for, persevering through these times, and everybody's been communicating and doing house cleaning and doing, best practices of what they can do and be adapting. I think going forward, Jerry says the other day to us, he didn't come this far to only go this far. So I'm going to follow that lead. And, as you get ready to look to the days when you are going to get back fully engaged and you're going to get out and things like that, I'd say, Jerry mentioned this the other day, have a specific prioritized plan on who you're going to solicit and who you're going to cultivate, so that when you do get back out and travel and so forth, you're not trying to figure out then what you're going to do. And between now and then, you can really lay some groundwork to make that more effective. And we as a Smith Group right now, I'm excited. Jerry and I are going to go to Knoxville on the 16th. We're going to start a feasibility study at Christian Academy in Knoxville. We've adapted our interview process and what we're doing to be able to do that. We're going to do some creative things, and we're looking forward to the future and ready to move. But I'm proud of every one of you guys. And I'll say one last thing. I was at a Lions Club yesterday. We had 10 kids get scholarships, over $40,000 at our Lions Club, and there were a lot of donors there, and some of the donors were in their 80s and things like that. But these kids made me proud of them. The virus kids as they're graduating seniors going to UT at business school, top graduate. Another kid going to A&M, another kid going to Texas Tech, and they can't wait to get out there and go to college and do what all of y'all are doing. So just remind ourselves what this is about, and that's about all I can say right now. But I'm proud of all you guys for sure.
All right,
Jerry, this has been a great format, and it really would be good. And I think, I'd like to get back together maybe in 3 months and see how everybody's doing. Would everybody be okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Thanks for each one of you.
Jerry.
We're going to send you a copy of this so y'all can look at it again and study it and send it to anybody you want to. Thank you all. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Jerry.
Thank you, guys.